guys, welcome back. So what we are looking at today is lesson 8, describing distributions on histograms. Now, I know you don't have what we are looking at right here. This is sorting histograms. And so this is a set of cards that if we were in person, we would get to take and go through. So what we're looking at here is we want to take and look at the histograms that are symmetrical versus those that aren't symmetrical. So we're going to go through and decide which ones look like they are symmetrical. So symmetrical means that they are evenly distributed. So if we look, and some of them don't necessarily have to get categorized with it. The symmetrical ones are the ones that typically don't have any gaps. So for this first part, we're looking at histograms that are approximately symmetrical. So looking at this first, I mean, not really. So not symmetric. This next one, a little more symmetric, we could possibly say, but not really. They're not. We've got higher here, and then it grows and then it shrinks way down, so not symmetric. F here is very symmetric, or approximately symmetrical. B is not. C is not. G is not. D is not. H is not. I is symmetric. K is not. J is. And L would not be. Okay, so then the next thing.
Claire, call for the office, please, Claire.
So the next thing we want to look at is histograms are also described by how many major peaks they have. Histogram A is an example of a distribution with a single peak that's not symmetrical. So which other histograms have this feature? So one peak and not symmetrical. So we could say, so this has one peak and it's not symmetrical, so one peak. This one doesn't really have a peak. This one doesn't. This one does, so one peak. Histogram L does, so one peak. We could also go for D as one peak, kind of. That one peaks a little bit, not tons, but sort of. So, and then one peak. All right, for 4, some histograms have a gap, a space between 2 bars where there are no data points. For example, if some students in class have 7 or more siblings, but the rest of the students have 0, 1, or 2 siblings, the histogram for this data would show gaps between the bars because no students have 3, 4, or 5, or 6 siblings. So which histograms have gaps? Well, A has gaps, E has gaps, G has gaps, D has gaps, H does not, I does not, K has gaps, and then J does not, but L, gaps, there we go. All right, and then 5, sometimes there are a few data points in a data set that are far from the center. Histogram A is an example of a distribution with this feature. So notice it's an outlier, it's pretty far away. So histograms that have that feature, so far from center, would be A. So I'm going to call it outlier, it's shorter to right. outlier. Got an outlier here. We've got some outliers here. Now this I wouldn't call an outlier, it's just because there's a gap, but then there's still a decent amount of stuff there, so I wouldn't call it an outlier. This one definitely has outliers. But yeah, we could conclude D, but I don't really think it fits that well with outliers. So a lot to do with symmetrical and just all sorts of details about these histograms and their different parts and different distributions. So your keyword for this lesson is symmetrical. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Have a great day.